Joe Biden didn't rig the election. Trump lost it. He won't acknowledge it. But let's just start with the Justice Department stuff.
Sure.
Anything there that you want to say I may have a point about?
You have to understand that, yes, parts of the Justice Department were weaponized against Americans. Let's go back to 2020. You had the riots in the summer of 2020. You had what happened on January 6th. Without a doubt, there were different charges levied for the same behavior. If that's not a weaponization of the Justice Department based upon politics, I don't know.
You know, it's not every day we witness a political face-off that just totally shakes the room. Picture this. Representative Byron Donalds and Bill Maher pushing each other's buttons over some, I guess, crucial topics like Justice Department weaponization and the nomination of Kash Patel by Trump.
Here's what you do. You go in and you evaluate everybody at DOJ. And that's what they're in the process of doing. And I will also add, it is the duty of the President of the United States, because they are the ones that won the election, to then go through the executive branch and actually make sure that it is behaving in accordance with the policies and the plans they talked about in the campaign. Donald Trump didn't hide the ball on this. He was very clear about what he was going to do. The American people voted for him, and now he's...
It's a wild ride, folks. Byron, a staunch defender of President Trump's policies, versus Maher with his trademark skepticism. It's like the perfect storm of opposing ideologies. Now, if you're wondering why this is such a big deal, well, it's because both of these figures are really passionately defending their views. Byron's calling out what he sees as biased practices within the Biden administration's Justice Department, painting a picture of manipulation and unfairness. And then there's Maher, trying to untangle this web of political arguments, challenging Byron at every step. It's a dramatic clash that honestly reveals a lot about today's political landscape. So if you're wanting more of these heated debates where the real grit of politics is exposed, you got to stay updated right here. Let's make it a goal. If you haven't already, subscribe, because it seriously keeps me going. I'm aiming for 1,000 subscribers by the end of February. With your help, I can reach this milestone. Come on, join us and never miss a beat. Just subscribe. You won't regret it. So, let's dive deep into the full debate between Byron Donalds and Bill Maher, where things really start to heat up, It all begins with a discussion over the alleged weaponization of the Justice Department.
There is so much to cut, but there's a way to do it. For example, I read the Justice Department's Environmental Division they want to cut. And there's also the EPA's Environmental Justice Office. So the EPA has a Justice Office, and the Justice Department has an Environmental Office. How about everybody just do their own job? We have like 4 Air Forces. Like, we have the Air Force, right, but the Navy has an Air Force, and the Army has an Air Force, and everybody has an Air Force.
I bet they're expensive, by the way.
And the police department here, I think, has an Air Force, too. It's not like some of... But the way you're doing it is a little crazy. These teenagers who are rummaging through buildings, I mean, this is really what was in the plan? There's no better way to do this? Softer, a little?
Having been a member of Congress, I'm telling you that town is against stopping anything or cutting any spending. The entire town is focused with just spending more money. And so the only way, in my opinion, you can really get into it is you have to walk into buildings and cease operations and see exactly what's going on and let the public know what's going on.
Byron, in typical fashion, doesn't mince his words. He kicks off by pinpointing what he perceives as selective justice under Biden's administration. Byron argues that back in 2020, there were blatant discrepancies in how the rioters were treated based on political leanings, like he insists that there was a political bias at play, with certain groups getting a pass while others faced the harsh end of the stick. This, according to Byron, is the essence of Justice Department weaponization, a selective application of justice, so to speak. And as fiery as it sounds, it's a serious accusation that really sets the tone for the rest of their debate. Maher jumps in, not willing to let this claim slide, right? Saying that, hey, Biden's administration isn't exactly the villain here.
Well, he's doing it extra legally, wouldn't you agree? Extra, and when I say extra, I don't mean like, hey, it's extra. Am I wrong about that? Or we're sort of skipping over the 3 branches of government part?
Now, here's where I got to push back. Because as a member of Congress, under the previous administration, we would have inquiries. We would request information. We would want cabinet secretaries and assistant secretaries and deputy secretaries to come before committee. We would send letter after letter after letter and get no response. The Biden administration operated literally in the shadows. They would not tell you anything that was going on. At least Donald Trump puts it out in the litany of orders that come out that day. You knew nothing that was going on in Joe Biden's presidency. So if democracy truly dies in darkness, I would rather have an executive tell me what they're doing as opposed to hiding it from the American people.
Well, that's quite a charitable view of it.
He doesn't see the weaponization claim holding much water and challenges Byron to present concrete evidence. It's almost like a chess game where every move Byron makes, Maher has a counter move ready. Now, the conversation takes a twist when the nomination of Kash Patel as the FBI director by Trump comes up. Byron defends this nomination, asserting that Trump, as the elected president, had every right to place officials who aligned with his vision. And it's, well, quite a bold defense, implying that the president should have unquestioned authority over such decisions. Maher suggests cautiously that this might skirt ethical lines, that there's a sort of extra legal flair to it. Byron, in his rebuttal, points out how previous administrations had stonewalled their efforts for transparency, that Trump's transparency, albeit controversial, was preferable. He implies that knowing what the president is doing, even if it is controversial, beats mystery and secrecy. And folks, the tension here is real. Maher isn't buying it, and he mentions how, at times, Trump's methods felt like bypassing fundamental systems of checks and balances. It's fascinating to see Byron and Maher, two heavyweights in their fields, pitting logical arguments against each other while fiercely standing their ground. Then, we shift gears to discuss an equally intriguing topic, the intricate bureaucracy across various government departments. Byron brings up the inefficiency in the justice system and environmental offices, suggesting a realignment of duties. Maher listens, but you can tell he's a bit skeptical again. Byron's straightforward approach, just cut the excess and keep departments from overlapping, sounds logical in theory, but, as Maher points out, the reality of shutting these operations down isn't as simple. Maher highlights the chaos such drastic measures could potentially unleash. He's playing the realist here, while Byron stands as the reformist. The debate takes another turn towards government expenditure, where Byron argues the need for strict evaluations and possible cuts. He brings the watcher's attention to government gridlocks that prevent efficiency and unnecessary spending across departments. Byron argues further, saying that there's this town-wide obsession with spending, and the only way to control it is to make radical changes. It's an intriguing perspective, really, because if you think about it, American politics has often been criticized for its bureaucratic red tape and inefficiencies. Maher, though, is quick to remind Byron that these sweeping changes might not be accepted easily by a Congress known for its deep-seated political agendas. Again, the tug-of-war between them doesn't cease to surprise. The next issue they tackle is, honestly, a contentious one, the Department of Education. Byron boldly states that the department should basically be dissolved, with power reverting back to the states. He asserts that federal control hasn't worked and points to declining reading and math scores as evidence.
The Department of Education. Now, I don't know that much about it, but I've never read good things. Rahm Emanuel, who I agree with on almost everything, here was a quote. He said, 1/3 of 8th graders can't read, and now he wants to close the department? And I thought, that's probably why they can't read. Numbers keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know if the Department of Education is anything it doesn't really, I don't know what it does. Except take money. It's sort of a middleman. It doesn't run classrooms or do stuff like that. I don't think it makes policy. So where are you on something like that?
I think that the Department of Education has to essentially be closed. A lot of the authorities got to get sent back to the states. The dollars we appropriate actually need to go directly into the hands of parents so that they can use those resources in their states and in their communities to find the best outcome for their children. When the Department of Ed was created in 1977, our reading scores and math scores for kids 4th and 8th grade were higher than they are today. No. So it's not worked.
I read this, I'm stealing this from Nellie Bowles' column, but in the Michigan, the contract from the teachers union says you cannot be fired for getting caught drunk as a teacher until you do it for a 5th time.
What?
Yeah, the first 4 times, you're good. If you're caught selling drugs twice, that's when we fire you. The first time, you're good.
That's insane.
It is insane.
Yeah, it is.
So it's not like there isn't insanity that has to be addressed. And it's not like the kids are getting smarter.
Maher acknowledges some of Byron's concerns, but questions if dismantling is the right solution. He hesitates to agree on such a drastic step, even mentioning how liberal figures like Rahm Emanuel share the sentiment about poor education statistics, which makes the argument. Byron responds by saying federal overreach is the problem, and it's best to empower local governments with funding to directly impact education. Byron is actually, and quite convincingly, pitching decentralization as a silver bullet to reclaim effective governance, education included. Maher, even with his reservations, doesn't completely oppose the idea of returning power to the states, but suggests that it might be oversimplifying a much larger systemic issue. It's really a thoughtful pushback that considers more layers than just federal versus state control. So, Honestly, the back and forth here between Byron and Maher touches on deeper philosophical questions about what role the federal government should really play. Is it the overseer or just the enabler? A question with no easy answer. Maher, with his distinctive style, questions if automating processes and devolving responsibilities would genuinely improve outcomes or just create more problems. It's Byron's resolve and, frankly, dogged determination to seek transparency and accountability that's hard to overlook. Even so, Byron brings it back to the people's choice, mentioning how parents, if empowered, could perhaps choose what's best for their children with regards to education standards. Maher raises valid concerns about the dangers of pushing the responsibility solely onto individuals rather than ensuring faultless systems, probing Byron's arguments with precision and elegance. This engaging debate delves into not only political and bureaucratic errors but also societal ones, shining a light on how personal biases can sometimes cloud judgments in and out of government systems. In the end, after watching them spar with words and ideas, don't you think it's worth contemplating ourselves where we really want accountability to stem from? Should it be our leaders or should it actually be in our hands? Well, you've heard them hash it all out, but now it's your turn. What's your take? Let me know in the comments if you align more with Byron's vision or Maher's concerns. I really want to hear what you think, and honestly, keeping this conversation going is like so important. Let's talk about it below.